Hello, this is David and welcome to the Top 10 Worst Dungeons PS3 and Xbox 360 edition. I had now graduated college and was teaching school when the HD Twins came out, and strangely, many dungeons actually became smaller as technology advanced. I don't know if this is because it just costs too much to create the intricate dungeons of the past, or if developers finally realized that spending 5 hours in a dungeon with only one save point is a bad idea. Also, just a little aside, I didn't realize how many awesome Tales games were released this generation until I compiled this list. Anyway, let's let the roast begin. Number 10, Enchanted Arms, Holy Beast Shrine. This place is downright obnoxious, but mercifully, it's optional. That's why it's high up on the list. Basically, it's 12 floors of nothingness, just wide open spaces and rooms with treasure here and there. Nothing interesting in the slightest. Talk about an anticlimactic dungeon. What makes it so bad, though, is that the encounters, you're going to be ambushed and caught off guard every single time, which will ensure that you waste as much VP as possible. What's VP, you ask? Well, it's only the single most annoying thing ever created in an RPG. Whenever you do anything in the game, even run away, you lose VP, and when it reaches 0, you have to start every battle with 1 HP and 1 EP, ensuring a quick death. VP can only be restored through a very expensive item or by leaving the dungeon and going to a recharge station. Thankfully, you can equip the evading counter skill to negate this, but if you do, good luck killing Omega at the end. Number 9, Final Fantasy XIII, Taejin's Tower. I'm sure I'm not the first person to rail on Final Fantasy XIII because of its linearity, but honestly, there are times that I prefer a mindless jaunt through a simple linear cave rather than a hellacious, mazy, backtracking, switch-filled, annoying tower. This game gives you both. 10 chapters of mindless cutscenes as you advance through the long, narrow hallway, followed by 1 chapter of painful, tedious backtracking. Taejin's Tower has 10 different floors to explore, and each is filled with enemies to fight and refight due to backtracking. Also, there are several statues strewn about which give the party quests, mostly to kill monsters again. Once you do that, you can climb further up the tower, only to continue doing the same thing, only with more backtracking as you climb up and down to find the marked monsters. Number 8, Star Ocean 4, The Last Hope, Cardianon Mothership. Once you enter this place, be sure to hunker down, because you're not going to be leaving for a long time. The Mothership itself is a large area full of locked doors and computer terminals that you have to activate to open. But the place doesn't get rage-inducing until you come to the control towers, which are full of laser barriers that flicker on and off, and you have to meander around the towers going up and down the floors to get all the treasures, since this is a one-time dungeon and everything here is missable, and each time you re-enter a floor, the enemies reappear to haunt you. As you climb higher, you'll encounter conveyor belts with a bad habit of slamming you over and over again into the laser barriers. The conveyor moves you towards the barriers, which then hits you and bounce you back, only to be stunned and moved forward again. And while this cycle goes on, you're getting raped by every enemy on the floor. Number 7, Eternal Sonata, Fort Fermanta. This dungeon hits you like a ton of bricks way early in only Chapter 2. I'm sure that it's made many people turn off the game in frustration just because of how needlessly long, empty, boring, and annoying it is. Fort Fermanta is a huge circular dungeon with switches on either side that turn the entire thing around, and there's also ladders to climb to access different floors of the then moved dungeon. You're constantly running back and forth through the entire labyrinthine dungeon after you hit each switch to see what changed on the other side, not to mention seeing what changed in the lower level too with all the ladders. Mercifully, once you're done you get a bypass key so you never have to go through that horrid place again. Number 6, Lost Odyssey, Temple of Enlightenment. To be perfectly honest, there are a couple to choose from in this game. I mean, the Great Ancient Ruins were terrible too, but I actually like the challenge of splitting up the party. The Temple of Enlightenment, though, has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. You're going to be in here for a long time, contending the entire way with brutally hard enemies, as well as puzzles. But it's not just any old hit-the-switch puzzle, no. Here you have to contend with the Z-axis as you move identical platforms around. It's extremely difficult to navigate and you're constantly spinning, but sometimes even going upside down. Number 5, Tales of Symphonia Chronicles, Ymir Forest. This forest drags on for a year and a day. Basically, there's some brat blocking your way because his mother's sick, like I care, and we have to find a fruit to cure it. Sounds simple enough? Huh. First, you have to order boars to slam into trees, knocking the fruit down into the surrounding lake. Then you have to guide fish to swim past the bigger fish to push that piece of fruit to a specific spot. Then summon birds to carry you to far-off branches to push a random wooden crate into the lake to form a bridge, and then finally summon a final fish to push the fruit to a lily pad near the beginning of the dungeon. My god. By the way, whatever happened to Colette just having wings to be able to fly and grab the damn fruit? Number 4, Tales of Graces F, all of the dungeons? In an effort to not have one game take over every single spot on the list, I'm just going to list the horrible, filthy laundry list of dungeons that will consume your soul in this spot. Wallbridge is a multi-level mazy hellscape where everything looks the same as you get lost, hit all the switches, and continually backtrack all over the place. Arcadia Gardens is an enormous maze coupled with invisible teleporters. Bathus Citadel is filled to the brim with unintuitive multi-level block puzzles. Lastalia Shaft is a huge multi-level maze of elevators with extremely hard enemies, and in order to get through it, it's pretty much trial and error as you take every single path to their dead ends, not to mention the bottom floors that inflict status ailments upon your group. Ghardia Shaft has that ridiculously huge colored floor puzzle, and finally the Sandshroud Ruins and the Puzzle of Nightmares, where you have to flip a myriad of pointers to connect colored currents to the other side of the room. All these places are pretty much equally as bad and downright infuriating. Number 3, Blue Dragon Primitive Cube. You would think that something named Primitive wouldn't be high-tech, but then if that were the case, this wouldn't be a JRPG where all ancient technology is light years beyond any current technology. This place will make you go gray. It's a tremendous cube with tons of switches that move various blocks around, creating bridges, and emblems to collect to unlock all the doors, and worst of all, switches that rotate the entire dungeon 90 degrees. Mazy and complex do not even begin to describe this place. It's more like disorienting, so you're never quite sure which way you're going. Add to the fact that the entire cube looks exactly the same, and it's just a nightmare. Number 2, Tales of Xillia 2, Land of Canaan. There's random dungeons which I hate, but then there's this place. It's a static dungeon designed as an intertwining maze with multiple paths. However, there's only one correct way to navigate it, and that correct path is randomized, which means that it's going to be different every single time that you go in there. It's like they took the two worst things possible, a maze and random dungeons, and combined them into this bastardized creation. I don't know who thought designing the final dungeon of a game that already made you do tedious stuff designed around random number generators would be a good idea, but I hope to God they've moved on to working on shooters or sports games or something else that I never played. And finally, number 1, Tales of Zestiria, Shrine of the Water Trial. Water dungeons should be banned. There is yet to be a good water-themed dungeon. There's the infamous Water Temple in Ocarina of Time, every sewer dungeon ever made, and this place. This is pretty much just a confusing mass of floors and corridors, and if you screw up just once, you're teleported right back to the start. Biggest bitch move that was at the very end. You think that you're done, step off the teleporter, only to realize that there's an eye on the wall and get sent back to do it all over again. The puzzle isn't hard to solve, you just use Miklio's bubble. It's just that it's annoying, frustrating, and cheap. The camera's wonky and all the eyes in the room aren't exactly visible. So if you slip up and you step a hair too far before activating the ability, or veer too much and it expires, well, too bad. Back to the start with you. Didn't see that eye at the end? Ha! Walk all the way back. Well, that's it for the top 10. Hope that you guys enjoyed this, and what are your worst dungeons in the HD era? Did you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.